It choked the air in the packed Philadelphia courtroom, thick and suffocating. Every eye was fixed on the jury foreman, a man whose face was etched with the grim weight of duty. Then the words fell like hammer blows. Guilty, on all counts. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Detective Elena Novak, her decorated police uniform suddenly feeling like a cruel costume of irony, stood ramrod straight. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the defense table. Guilty of the brutal assassination of Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chin, the very man she had been collaborating with to dismantle the city's most powerful crime syndicate. It was impossible. A nightmare stitched together from fabricated evidence and damning lies. Yet the jury believed it. The judge, his face impassive, confirmed the verdict and moved swiftly to sentencing. Citing the heinous nature of the crime, the murder of a federal prosecutor, and the overwhelming, though fabricated, evidence, he delivered the blow. Detective Novak, having been found guilty of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances, this court sentences you to death. The final words crashed over Elena, stealing the air from her lungs. Murmurs erupted. Cameras flashed. Her colleagues looked on in stunned disbelief. Elena Novak, a cop killer, sentenced to die. It defied everything they knew: her fierce integrity, her tireless service, her unmatched partnership with Max, her German Shepherd and K-9 partner. Within the department, their bond was legendary. Now she faced lethal injection. How could the system fail so catastrophically? The stakes were no longer just about finding hope. They were about surviving with the truth. As if summoned by a cosmic shift in energy, a low rumble reached Frank Sears. He looked up sharply. At the edge of the overgrown field, parked where the access track met the tree line, sat a black SUV with tinted windows. It wasn't moving, just sitting there, watching. They hadn't been alone after all. Frank's blood ran cold. They knew, or at least they suspected enough, to monitor the place Elena might have used. Quickly but carefully, he reburied the hole, scattering debris to make it look undisturbed. He pocketed the precious SD card. He couldn't go back the way he came. He couldn't call the police. Elena's frame-up had proven how deep the corruption ran. He and Max, now holding evidence that could bring down Silas and potentially implicate powerful figures, were targets. They had to disappear, get the evidence decrypted, and find someone trustworthy fast. The point of no return had been crossed. Adrenaline surged through Frank. Grabbing Max's harness, he gave a low command. "Quiet, heel." Max, sensing the urgency, instantly fell silent, sticking close to Frank's side as they melted into the dense undergrowth at the edge of the field, slipping away from the main tracks and the watching SUV. Frank's knowledge of the city's forgotten corners, gleaned from years on the force, kicked in. He led Max through a maze of overgrown paths, along the neglected riverbank, under decaying bridges, using the urban wilderness as cover. Periodically, he checked their back trail. Max, alert and silent, occasionally let out a low growl, confirming Frank's unease. They were being followed, not closely yet. Their first priority, securing the evidence and finding help outside the compromised PPD structure. Frank thought of Elena's defense attorney, Sarah Jennings, young, ambitious, and genuinely devastated by the verdict. Though skeptical at the time, Frank had sensed her lingering doubts about Elena's guilt. Using a burner phone he'd bought for cash, an old surveillance habit, Frank contacted Sarah, arranging a clandestine meeting at Reading Terminal Market. Noisy, crowded, secure in plain sight. Sarah arrived, wary but intrigued by Frank's urgent coded message. When Frank discreetly showed her the SD card and explained its connection to Operation Keepsake, her skepticism vanished. Wide-eyed shock took its place. This could change everything. Agreeing that involving the police was too risky, Sarah activated her own network. She brought in a trusted cybersecurity expert, Ben, a wizened older man operating out of a nondescript electronics shop in South Philly. In Ben's cluttered back room, surrounded by gutted computers and the smell of solder, they began the painstaking decryption of the micro SD card. Ben confirmed. Elena had used multiple layers of encryption, military grade. It would take time Elena didn't have. As Ben worked tirelessly, days bled into nights. Frank and Max rotated between safe houses arranged by Sarah, never staying more than 48 hours. The pressure. Mounted news reports detailed the final preparations for Elena's execution. 3 weeks. Frank felt the crushing weight of responsibility. He saw Elena's face in his sleep, heard her whisper, "Keepsake." Max, sensing Frank's anxiety, remained constantly vigilant, a silent, furry guardian. Then Ben broke through the final layer of encryption. What they found exceeded Frank's desperate hopes. Crystal-clear audio files, covert recordings Elena must have made. Silas and his top lieutenants discussing the murder of AUSA Chen and the plan to frame Elena, details only the guilty would know. Encrypted financial ledgers showed payoffs from shell corporations to numbered accounts, some traceable to public officials. There were surveillance photos, too, Elena's work, documenting secret meetings between combined figures and seemingly legitimate businessmen. Even a high-ranking police official Frank recognized with a sickening jolt. It was a treasure trove. A meticulously compiled indictment, but possessing the evidence wasn't enough. They needed to authenticate it, protect its chain of custody, present it in a way the Combine couldn't crush. Soon Sarah began receiving threats, anonymous calls, her office broken into, nothing taken, but the message was clear. They were closing in. This was their dark night of the soul. The system designed to deliver justice might be rigged against them. Then a ray of hope. Lieutenant Marcus Jones, Internal Affairs, known for rigid integrity, quiet disdain for corruption, and suspicion of rapidly rising commanders. It was a gamble. Sarah requested a secret meeting. She showed Jones a fraction of the audio, just enough to hear Silas discussing Elena's frame-up. Jones paled. Grim-faced, he recognized the voice. He agreed to help. A covert I2A investigation began, under the highest secrecy. While Jones's team built their case, Sarah prepared an emergency motion for a stay of execution and a new trial. They planned a simultaneous offensive. Sarah would drop the bombshell evidence in court. Jones's team would execute sealed warrants, decapitating the Combine's leadership in one coordinated strike. The final battle for Elena's life had begun. The emergency court hearing crackled with tension. News of the request had leaked. The courtroom overflowed. Press, legal observers, police brass. Elena was brought in, gaunt, pale. But there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. Frank, Max, and Sarah sat at the defense table. Max lay quietly at Frank's feet, a special dispensation granted by the judge. His presence a silent testament. Sarah rose, voice steady. She presented the keepsake evidence. How Frank, guided by a clue from Elena and aided by Max, found the hidden SD card at the abandoned training grounds. She submitted the card, the expert affidavit, the authentication. The prosecution, blindsided, objected. But then Sarah played the audio. Silas's calm voice filled the courtroom, discussing the murder and the frame job, naming names. Then came the financial ledgers, the shell companies, the payments. Across the city, Lieutenant Jones's team moved in, warrants executed. Phones buzzed with breaking news. Arrests were happening. Known Combine enforcers, white-collar accomplices, and, shockingly, a decorated deputy police commissioner. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers. The prosecution's objections collapsed. Max, sensing the change, lifted his head and let out a soft whine, looking toward Elena. The judge slammed his gavel. Based on the extraordinary evidence presented, this court grants an immediate stay of execution for Detective Novak. Furthermore, I order an immediate investigation into this evidence and a review of the original conviction. Pandemonium. Elena sagged against the table, tears streaming. Frank gripped her shoulder. Max nudged her hand, his tail thumping softly. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.